Sally? Cool.
I've got the sweetest hangover. I don't wanna get over. Sweetest hangover. Yeah.
All right, Nat. Let's go ahead and let everybody in.
Hello, everyone. What a wonderful way to start. We definitely need some more music and dancing at these things. Absolutely. Hi, my name is Sally Sweat. I'm the artistic director of Eyebeam, and I'd like to describe myself today for any guests who are blind or low vision. I have longish, reddish brown curly hair. I have light skin and I wear big plastic glasses with a bit of a cat eye. I am wearing a brown and black striped kind of geometric pattern top, and I'm currently sitting in my kitchen in front of some warm brown cabinets. So thanks everyone so much for joining us this Friday afternoon or morning or evening, depending on where you are in the world. For those of you who are just getting to know Eyebeam for the first time, our mission is to center artists in the invention and design of our shared future. We are committed to the idea that artists are a necessary part of not just imagining, but also creating a more humane future for us all. And during a time where our lives are increasingly enmeshed in the digital and we find ourselves on these platforms such as Zoom every day, Eyebeam aims to ensure that the accessibility of all of our digital programs and content. This is an ongoing commitment for the organization and one that continues to evolve in collaboration with our community of artists, audiences, and our team. So we welcome any and all feedback always from you all. So with that being said, I hope you're all getting comfortable today in your own rooms. And I'd like to take a moment to orient you to the virtual room that we're sharing today. And at any time, please feel free to reach out to the Eyebeam staff in the chat box. And of course, you're welcome to unmute yourself and speak to the group if you need help getting connected or navigating the space in any way. So I'll just take a minute to introduce you to some key folks from Eyebeam's team that are supporting today. Yidan is here to assist with any access needs or questions, and we'll be reading some of the content earlier on in the program in the chat box. And Matt is here, who will be posting directions in the chat box, instructions on how to pin ASL interpretation and to make captions visible to you if they're not already, and any other helpful information that you may need along the way. We'll also take a moment to pause when the interpreters are switching so that no one misses anything. Today's event is being captioned. I'd like to say hello to Debbie, our captioner, and we also have ASL provided by Lisa and Candace. Thank you all for joining us today. Our guests today, Cassie Thornton and Tina Zavitsanos, will be providing image descriptions throughout the program, and questions and comments also in the chat box will be read aloud, and is not, as chat is not captioned or ASL interpreted and does not work with all screen readers. We're very grateful today to be partnering with Pluto Press for this conversation and launch of Cassie's book, The Hologram, which I'm holding right here in my own kitchen, Feminist Peer-to-Peer Health for a Post-Pandemic Future, which is also developing with ongoing support of Furtherfield London's longest running D Center for Art and Technology. I love that. And now I'm going to hand it over to Ruth Catlow from Furtherfield, who will be facilitating today's conversation. Ruth is the co-founder and artistic director of the Furtherfield online community for arts, technology, and social change since 1997, and is now a public gallery in the heart of Finsbury Park, London. She is an artist working with emancipatory network cultures, practices, and poetics in arts, technology, and social change, informing artistic research and organizational developments to engender shared visions and infrastructures. So really happy to have you here today. Ruth, I'm going to turn it over to you to share a bit about today's structure, the structure of today's conversation, and introduce today's guests.
Thank you. What an enormous pleasure to be here. Partly because I think this is the first time I've been in the same space as the Eyebeam crew, which is just awesome in itself. But also, obviously, Furtherfield, I've been working with Furtherfield with Cassie for the last year, which is fantastic. So what a brilliant combination of things. So to describe myself, I have dark rubber-rimmed glasses, also quite pale-skinned, outgrowing red mullet, bright pink roll neck top. And in my background, I have a kind of digital abstract expressionist, kind of grey oil slick painting. Yes, so it's a real pleasure to be part of what is turned out to be a transatlantic event to explore the context and topics of the book by Cassie. And this spring at Furtherfield, we had the pleasure of hosting Cassie Thornton as artist in residence at Furtherfield, especially to develop the hologram. Furtherfield's co-founder Mark Garrett also has an interview in the book with Cassie about the hologram that was carried out a couple of years ago. So we've been kind of, I feel like we're happily in the DNA of this project to some degree. So Cassie arrived in London this year to participate in a residency at Furtherfield, and then we all got wrapped in the pandemic, which has kind of done something. Obviously it's brought a whole new context to the project. But tonight we're here to meet two artists, so Cassie Thornton and Tina sorry, I'm going to struggle with this, Zavitsanos. Sorry, Tina. So Cassie and Tina are two artists who've both worked with debt, care and holograms. Cassie and Tina were in a series of exhibitions together from 2017 to 19 about the politics of health, and the exhibition was called Sick Time, Crip Time, Creepy Time, Against Capitalism's Temporal Bullying, and this was curated by Tarane Fazeli. During the course of these exhibitions, Cassie changed the scope of her work from a decade looking at debt to develop the hologram. So this is a viral peer-to-peer health distribution project, which is what the book is all about. Cassie found out that Tina had an exhibition using holograms at Participant Inc. titled The L&D Motel to model dependency structures. And in this show, Tina showed that when cut, some things do not halve, but rather double, because a basic principle of holography holds that the part contains the whole, and that even a fragment of a cut holographic image can produce the whole recorded scene. And this is where the title of this event came from. So, what to expect tonight? Well, it's tonight for me, it's day for those of you in the States. This event has been planned in 3 kind of rhythmic sessions. So there's a rhythm to the whole event. Each session will include a presentation from Cassie about the project, followed by reflections from Tina, and then Q&A from the audience. So please do let us know what questions are arising for you as conversations are underway. This will happen 3 times, and there will be a 2-minute, well, it's a bathroom break or a dance break, depending on how you're feeling, because there will be music at the end of each of these 25-minute sessions. So hang out, dance with the music, or take a break and turn your video off if you need to. So I'm now going to hand over to Cassie.
Hello. Now I think Jay might share an image. And being a person organizing a lot of events on Zoom, you know, things move slowly sometimes, and there's some silence sometimes, and I think it's actually kind of nice. So hello, thank you everybody for coming. I'm a bit verklempt. It's like, you know, one of my first childhood friends is here. So yeah, so I guess Ruth described the format. I'm just gonna kind of dive in and talk for about 7 minutes. So
Cassie, is it cool if I describe the images on screen?
yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, so what we're looking at is like an apparently old etching, I guess, and it hosts at its center a figure in a headscarf and kind of a robe. And they're holding a giant triangle, like so giant that it's covering one of their companions' entire like face and body, but you can see their feet peeking out at the bottom. There's another figure beside them that's not covered up by this giant triangle. And that person is also wearing a headscarf and a skirt and a robe type covering. And also there's a shield beside them. In the front of the image, there's like these 2 really cute swans that are like facing one another, and their necks are bending, almost like making a heart shape. I mean, definitely making a heart shape. There's a pond there. In the background, there's either a sun or a moon. I don't know, because it's a black and white etching. there's some tree line of reeds maybe, and then there's a big tree or some kind of thatched thing that everybody's gathered under, and a canopy of leaves. And in the corners of this image, there's 4 small kind of postage stamp like images, and the first one has an insect. I would say it's a spider, but I don't think it is. I think it's like a beetle in a spider web. Then there's another one that's like a winged, I don't know, maybe something like a bee or a moth hanging out on a flower. Then there's a snake in the grass, but in a good way, you know. And then there's a caterpillar on a leaf. I would say that the I guess the vibe is very, we've always had this, like they're kind of gathered together. This was given us, by us, for us, and we're each other's means without ends. Or that's kind of how I see the vibe of it all.
Thank you. Yeah, so I guess since we're on the image, before I describe myself, I'll just say that this is an image of the Greek fates. And I think this will all come into context when I explain a bit about the hologram as a project and the book. So I made these 3 images. I made 3 images for today. And so as I talk, I'll refer sometimes to these images, but they're not actually necessary either for understanding the hologram as a project or a book. And then Tina wrote the image descriptions that they just shared. And so this is the 3 fates. And just quickly, those are 3 Greek goddesses that determine human destinies from Greek mythology. And they determine like who lives for how long and how much they'll suffer when they're born. And they have been kind of used in lots of different cultures all over the world, or they reappear, these sort of like three figures that determine destiny. So I'm Cassie, and I have a big fat like orange open knit sweater over a black shirt. I'm wearing earrings that one of my very good friends made me with rose quartz, like kind of 2 teardrops with some stars underneath it. I have fair skin, but I put on makeup for everyone. So I'm wearing some orangish lipstick and some purple eyeshadow. I have light brown hair with a big fat white streak kind of like down the side of my forehead I think on your right side. And I'm sitting in my studio, and there's a candle burning to my upper left. And so I'm so happy to be here today. And I'm just going to give a little introduction to the history of the project right now. And I guess that involves telling you a little bit about me. I live in Thunder Bay in Canada, which is about 6 hours north of Minneapolis, about 30 minutes above the American border, in the place that we currently call Canada, on Anishinaabe territory. I am American though, and for many years, for about a decade, I did work mostly all about debt, and with debt as the actual material that I was working with. And this is important to the project. And the reason that I worked a lot with debt was because my family was heavily indebted and kind of without a lot of like economic or financial mobility. And I spent a long time trying to figure out if the reason we were experiencing a lot of like foreclosures and bankruptcies and lack of access to healthcare was because we were doing something wrong, or because there was something wrong with the larger system. And so my work and life has really become about trying to understand those systems, but also trying to understand like the possibility of like what we can do outside of those systems. So I lived most of my life in the US without any relationship to like a healthcare system. I went to acupuncture at my friends' houses. I got acupuncture in my best friend's bed. Most people that I lived and worked with were in a similar boat. And at the same time, I was studying these sort of debt systems and sort of seeing how we centered so many of our big societal decisions around the creation of profit and the centering of power around people that hold that. and not around the production of health or life. And so I began to call myself a feminist economist instead of an artist, because I wanted to be taken seriously when I said that I think that it's possible to make a new economy where actually we just produce health and life. And I've been holding that for many, many years and not really knowing how I would ever suggest getting there, because most of my work was very critical, and wanting to like take revenge, for instance, on the economic system and the people that hold the keys to that system. So in studying debt and debt systems, I became really interested in sovereign debt and larger forms of public debt and shared debt and collective debt, and things that are sort of bigger than we can really quite understand or see. One thing that kind of clicked in my radar was during the Greek financial crisis, when they were deemed bankrupt in the early 2010s, or on their way there. I became aware that there was, well, first of all, that there was also a refugee crisis. Greece's borders were open, and so lots of people from war-torn places were now entering Greece. And at the same time, because of a pending bankruptcy, the Greek healthcare system had its budget cut by up to 40%, meaning that hospitals didn't have what they needed anymore to keep the beds clean even, or to pay staff in a lot of ways. So all over Greece popped up free clinics called social solidarity clinics, where any person could show up and get completely free medical care. And this became really, really interesting to me, because it seemed so impossible, and I love impossible stuff. And so I had heard a rumor that one of these clinics, which I think it's important to say there was up to 60 clinics, I think in 2016, and they were all working on a similar project, but it was not a clean network. They were run by anarchists and NGOs and sometimes churches, but they all were kind of running on their own terms, but all offering free healthcare. One of the rumor that I heard, though, was that there was some clinic I heard in Thessaloniki, which is the second largest city in Greece, that they were working on a project to offer non-hierarchical care, and that they specifically had a model called the integrative model. And so I actually got to go to Greece in search of the people that were working on this model in 2017, and got to learn about it. And basically what they were doing, I'm going to tell you about two parts of their project. The people that were working on this project called the integrative model at the Social Solidarity Clinic of Thessaloniki called themselves a group for a different medicine. And they developed a project, many projects, but one which is that when you came into the clinic as what we would call a patient, they would call you an incomer. And I thought that was really beautiful, because it meant that, what they were trying to say in a way was that patient might imply that you're sick and need to be made well, or broken in order to need care, but they believe that all people need care, so the person that's the patient, the only difference between them and the doctors is that they're just coming in. So they're an incomer. And then when they came in, this is the part that really got me. They were seen by 3 caretakers at the same time. So now we have the fates here in this image to refer to. So they were seen by 3 people at the same time: a doctor, a social worker, and a therapist. And they were seen for about 90 minutes and asked all kinds of questions about who they are, where they work, what they eat, where they get their food, to whom do they owe debt, what types of relationships are in their life, are they lonely, are they part of a social movement. They asked all kinds of stuff, and they put it all together on one big kind of medical card. And then they would ask, after that 90-minute period, for the patient/incomer to actually begin a conversation about what they need, and to actually begin to build a plan with these caretakers for basically what it would take for them to be healthy for the next year. So they could actually ask for what they needed from those people, and they would try to help them make a plan where there was no more spending money to create health. So maybe they needed to deal with a job that was backbreaking, or they needed access to better food, or maybe they're just sad and maybe they need more access to people. And so they would kind of work with them on those terms.
That's not for me, is it? Oh, thanks.
Um, so,
Cassie, just to let you know, you've had about 12 minutes.
oh, I'm gonna just say one more thing and then I'm gonna pass it to Tina.
Cool.
It's good, right?
So the way that we came to the title though is really important. So I ended up getting to go to the clinic that started the integrative model, and I met one of the founders, Froso Morelli. And Froso told me that when she's a psychologist, and when she works on the integrative model, when she sees a patient or an incomer, she sees them in all their dimensions now through this model, because connecting the person's, they're finding out about their body and their physical systems, as well as their sort of social experience, really helped her to actually understand so much more about the mental and emotional experience. And so she told me that it's like creating a hologram for a person. And so that's where the title came for this project. And I've been kind of trying to catch up ever since with what it would mean to work with holography as a central part of a viral feminist healthcare project. Tina,
Wonderful.
do you want to
Tina.
Hi, I'm Tina. I'm sitting in a virtual outer space background. It's like a deep blue. The stars look almost like soft, and there's like a little bit of a glow of like I don't know if it's the Earth. I'm trying to pretend it's Jupiter that's behind me. I got a blue hat on to kind of match my background. My skin is white. My hair is dark and curly. It's really long, but it looks really short. I got a bandana on kind of like a rugby shirt or something, like a pop collar. It looks very 90s prep, except I got overalls on too. That was like I can just say the room feels a little bit cold, like in here, but my collar feels really warm. Okay, thank you. Sorry, Cassie. That was a lot. I'm always struck by. I've only done 2 book events before, but they both involved the fates as a primary beginning. So it's wild to see the fates here again. There's a ton of things that you're bringing up in there. First of all, like the idea of the peer-to-peer care and the fact that everybody needs care is like, I think one of the most important things that we can talk about right now, not just in the United States where, we don't have healthcare for everybody, but also everywhere. And I think that's something that sometimes I think we see people who are sick or disabled as being in need of more care or having excessive need. And I just like something I love about the structure, insofar as I understand it from our phone call and what you started saying here, is how this doesn't really, it doesn't do that. It puts every person that is like getting this care is also giving this care, right? So it doesn't escape this. I think some of the machinations of racial capital make us think that care has to be an exchange process. And now that's cool if you're in one of those exchange processes. Obviously people who are doing care work for pay should be paid well, but they should also receive care. That's the thing. So that's one of the things I like about I guess I call it like an economy, or maybe I could call it an ecos, just to keep it Greek. But there's a nice kind of, the OG, the original feminist peer-to-peer ecos is whatever. Greek jokes don't go over well, I guess, but but at any rate, I really just love that it's kind of, it's already ready already. I mean, there's a structure that can kind of be easily reproduced. And I know that that's probably not making sense to everybody just yet, but I think that it will, because it's actually really that simple. I like, the fates always kind of scared me because I have a tricky relationship to fate. But I like this proposal because it feels like the fates are very much on your side. and with you. And then from what I've understood about a lot of things you've been telling me about the hologram, is that like the construction of it, while it like it's yeah, I guess it is kind of holographic. I mean, we'll get into that, but I kind of want to know more about the person who told you that it's like a hologram, because like I really want to know. I get really specific about what a hologram is and isn't, um, but I like someone just like when it rendered, that's what they saw. Do you know what I mean? Like when it like came into shape, that like, and I think it kind of just means that it becomes dimensional or something like that. That this flat schema became like a real live care system.
I
You know?
I mean, the more I learn about holograms, like the more I realize, I think what Froso might have been saying, like, you know how when people like were first trying to make holograms, like you have to make sure nothing in the room moves when you try to take this
Oh
photo.
yeah.
And like I'm not qualified to explain the process of making, like, taking a holographic image, but like
Well, I
one
can
part of it.
explain it. If there's vibrations, it's just completely jacked.
And so I met like
That's
old
the scientific way.
holographers who would like fill the room with sand to make sure that like the room didn't move. And they had to like do so much to like be taking these really sensitive images in a space like in a basement in New York or Toronto. And so it's like it's so much work to create the conditions where all the dimensions can be shown in an image. And I feel that that's sort of what they've been doing in the Social Solidarity Clinic of Thessaloniki. Like they've been working so hard to figure out what the right conditions are to make that model work, and they've been working on it now for 5 years. So like and it's just that like every time they do it, they kind of like have to tweak it and figure out like the relationships between the caretakers and the relation, and like who says what when and who takes notes. And I feel like that's kind of like what you do when you're making something new. And the people I've met who were making holograms when holograms were new had to do a bunch of that kind of R&D too. And I think that's what we're doing. That's kind of where we are in the hologram project too, where we're like
Yeah.
how do we make the room stop shaking enough so we can just figure out how to do this?
Yeah. I mean, I'm very familiar with that test kitchen. So, but I love that it's like a care test kitchen too. Like, I mean, I love the refinement that's going into it. And I guess when you first told me that, like when you first said it right here, like I really just thought of it as yeah, like an image coming into being, like a kind of abracadabra, something from nothing, taking the flat and making it at the very least, appear dimensional. And that's a cool property of holograms in general, that they are they an image or are they an object? Like you can't touch them. Um but they hold what's it called, like motion parallax, right? So they hold multiple angles. You can see them from different sides. Um, and I think I actually maybe it's a little. I actually think that your your structure, insofar as I understand it, is at the very least hyperbolic. Like it does actually produce. It takes a small part and it reproduces that from that, like by repeating itself, right? So in that sense, it's like it's interconnected, such that if you did cut off one, you don't lose the whole, right? So the whole, and like in a way, the hologram, or what you call the hologram, is there, like, because the hologram is the whole structure, but it's also the person who's, I guess, like getting the three-way fates, right? So that person then is kind of uh, they're being seen at multiple angles, right? So they do have. That's why I'm kind of metonymically trying to map this idea that there are three kind of perspectives on them. So they're not. It's not a flat thing anymore. And I think that's probably where the person you're talking to was getting at, and that is. I mean, yeah, I think it might actually be a legit hologram, even more than the Tupac video, which was super cool, but wasn't technically a hologram. Like yours might actually go there. Um, Yeah. Well, I know I don't know where we are on time, or if we're ready for a break.
Are we in time, Ruth? How are we?
We are in time, and I'm gonna, because we aren't flooded with questions yet. I know what people are like. They're storing them up, but I just like one thing that I'd like to ask. We have a couple of minutes before we go to the dance break. Is just this question about the fates and their association with uneven fortune, like, and how the hologram is, how you feel, what does the hologram bring to the kind of great unevenness of people's fortune, because this is something that kind of we're all dealing with when we're working with your project, the hologram.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think the hologram, like, I guess we haven't had a chance to like explain the structure yet, which I'll do in the next little section. But I think the general idea is that we want it to be something that anybody can practice, that can be a practice that you can do like underneath whatever other kinds of care you do or don't receive. So some of us have, like, I live in Canada now and I can go to the doctor and I don't have to pay for it out of my pocket. But if you live in the United States, maybe you can't, or maybe you can just go sometimes. And so like I think that the hologram is about creating a kind of like it's like an undercommons. It's like an underneath peer-to-peer thing that lasts between that spotty service that we might receive from medical institutions. But the idea is that it's something that anybody can do, and we're working really hard to figure out how to make that so. And that, like, even, you know, that it might be a teaching tool, like, because care is something that could be really like more like can weigh much more heavily on certain genders or racial identities. Like, it's hopefully like an onboarding practice that like somebody that might not really like fit the bill usually, or might not have had a lot of experiences like offering hardcore support to somebody, like could enter and be a part of it and like learn through practice, by being surrounded by other people, by being surrounded by the other two faiths. And then because of the way that the model works, they would not only be giving care, but they'd also be receiving it. And so I think that could be a really transformative experience that might like even out the unevenness that is produced even outside of formal care models.
Thank you. Let's go to our dance break.
Oh, before this dance break, this is Edan speaking from Eyebeam. A quick visual description. I'm light-skinned Chinese American with black headphones and a clear rim glasses. I'm sitting in a corner of my room. And I just want to read out some of the things that have been shared in the chat. At the beginning of the introduction, Renata had said, what a great introduction. Thank you, Sally. Cassie had reiterated the exhibition title, Sick Time, Crip Time, Sleepy Time Against Capitalism's Temporal Bullying, curated by Tarane Fazeli. And then Mad from Eyebeam shared, after having heard such an amazing, delicious introduction to the hologram, you can purchase the book for 30% off using the code hologram30 at plutobooks.com. You can search for it there. And Nana also expressed after your introduction, Cassie, thanks. And now we'll go into our dance break.
But it's caused me to act in such a crazy way.
For those checking out Pluto Books, they are having a 50% off holiday sale, so really exciting.
It's a feeling that I want to stay. 'Cause my heart starts beating triple time with my mind. I can't figure out just what to do when the cause and cure is you. I get so weak in the knees, I can hardly speak. I lose all control. Then something takes over me. In a day, you look so amazing. It's not a phase. I want you to stay with me. By my side, I swallow my pride. Your love is so sweet. It knocks me right off of my feet. Can't explain why your love it makes me weak. Time after time after time, I try to fight it. But your love is strong, it keeps on holding on. Resistance is down when you're around, price fading. In my condition, I don't want to be alone. 'Cause my heart starts beating triple time with thoughts of loving you on my mind. I can't figure out just what to do when the cause and cure is you. I get so weak in the knees, I can hardly speak. I lose all control. Then something takes over me. In a day, you look so amazing. It's not a phase. I want you to stay with me. By my side, I swallow my pride. Your love is so sweet. It knocks me right off of my feet. Can't explain why your love it makes me weak. I try hard to fight it. No way can I deny it. Your love so sweet knocks me off my feet. I get so weak in the knees, I can hardly speak. I lose all control. Then something takes over me. In a day, you look so amazing. It's not a phase. I want you to stay with me. By my side, I swallow my pride. Your love is so sweet. It knocks me right off of my feet. Can't explain why your love it makes me weak. I get so weak. Blood starts racing through my veins. I get so weak. Boy, it's something I can't explain.
Such beautiful signing.
Yes, and before we hop on to our next segment, I just want to read some of the chats that have come through in the break. If you haven't seen already, Pluto Press is having a 50% off sale, so please check it out. And then people were asking the song, it's SWV, and Becky had asked, so in this pseudo-communist healthcare system that would be so beautiful, how do we find those to be in our circle of care? How do we balance who gives and receives? And lots of love from Lita for Candace in the beautiful signing during the song. Jeremy also echoed, this is incredible. And Ellie said, Candace is amazing. I saw them interpreting Christine's gig a couple of months back, equally incredible. And then just message, you can follow Cassie Thornton on Insta at the_feminist_economics_department and Vagabonds at vagabonds_XYZ. And Clarice also is echoing loving the ASL interpreter vibing SWV.
Thank you, Eden. So into our the second act. Cassie, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah. I hear that we're running a little bit over, so I'm just going to be aware of that. So Nat, would you put that image up when you have a chance? Not Nat, sorry, Jay. So I just wanted to start and sort of describe a little bit. Actually, I guess we're going to have a description of this image from Tina first, though.
Okay, what we got on the screen? On the right, a hand-drawn circle links via 3 separate continuous lines to 3 smaller circles, which themselves then each link by 3 distinct dotted lines to 3 more small circles. On the left, a hyperbolic drawing is juxtaposed with what appears to be the whole drawing on the right, repeated in the same structuring pattern to the edges to form a globe, or of a globe form, maybe, I don't know. The mood is structured but playful, serving Mendelbrot realness, like carnival sand art spirograph meets the fractals at the heart of the village. Sci-fi, but still justified and ancient. Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? I mean, if we must live in a simulation, can we make it this cute?
Thank you. Okay, so I want to use this diagram now. This is Cassie again. I want to use this diagram now just to describe how we basically hacked the integrative model, and that was happening at the Social Solidarity Clinic of Thessaloniki, and made it into something that could potentially be done as a peer-to-peer model. So the drawing on the right has a larger circle with 3 smaller circles. And so we're going to be referring to that image. The larger circle we can imagine is like the incomer that would go into the clinic and be seen by 3 doctors. So those are hard line. There's 3 hard lines from the bigger circle to smaller circles. So we know how the smaller circles in the Social Solidarity Clinic of Thessaloniki would be a doctor, a therapist, and a social worker. But me and some friends, wondered if it would be possible to actually do that among ourselves for each other. So specifically, could we do it by having the person that's in the bigger circle be called the hologram and have them convene 3 friends, and to have those 3 people ask the hologram questions to kind of remove the idea of expertise and to have this be a sort of regular ritual in our lives. So I guess I want to say that this is not a theoretical model. It's something that I and many other people use now. And I want to explain how it maybe works for me, because maybe it'll help you understand how it might work for you. So I am a hologram. I'm also a triangle member. We call the people that are in the little circles triangle members. But I'm going to talk about being a hologram. I have 3 friends. We meet about every 2 or 3 months, or if I have a kind of flare in my life. They ask me questions for about 2 hours. One asks me questions about my social health. One asks me questions about my physical health, and one asks me questions about my mental and emotional health. We have a few different rituals that we do online before, during, and after those questions to kind of warm up. It's really fun. It's quite light. And the type of conversation we have is not like any other conversation that I ever really have had, and but I've always wanted to. Maybe it's kind of something like an art critique, but about me, in the way that all kinds of different information comes. So I might come in saying like, you know, I have digestive issues, but we might end up talking about the relationship that I have to my house and my dreams, as well as like what kinds of food that I'm eating. And so there's a way that like when all sides of you are being seen, like lots of information comes out. And if you remember in the first image, those 3 fates were holding a giant mirror. And I think in a way, this type of conversation allows the hologram to really see themselves and to be seen by their friends. But in this model, it's really important that the hologram doesn't reciprocate to the triangle in a direct way. Like she doesn't give back what she receives necessarily. What she does do is make sure that each of those 3 people also have 3 people supporting them. And so in that way, the project is kind of automated, it's viral, and it naturally grows. I think there's a couple of really important terms that are like not big capital T terms, but things that will really help anyone that's new to this to think about it. One is that there's a lot of formality. So like these are formal conversations that we have decided to have together, and we have negotiated how and when to have the conversations between us. It is a ritual that happens every few months as the group determines, and that we favor curiosity over expertise. And the reciprocity model aims to help the project grow and to create a culture of care rather than a sense that we must return what we've been given all in the same way that it comes to us, which is something that we're definitely taught by living in the economy that we live in. And the goal is to create living medical records. So my 3 Triangle members, they were already my friends, but now we have a long-term commitment that they will be with me and know my story. And so when it comes to having to make a difficult decision, they'll be there with me and I won't have to make it by myself. And the goal is to have these kinds of rituals happen over a long period of time, and maybe even longer than we can imagine. Like, what if I have a commitment with my triangle for the next 15 years? Like, we can't even imagine what's going to happen in 3 months or 3 days, much less in 15 years. But we do have control over this kind of thing. Like, we actually can do radical planning together. And so when we have this kind of expansive time commitment to each other, it means that the quality of conversations that we have can be different. There's not so much pressure to like plug the hole, fix the gap, solve the problem. It's like an extended promise that we have to each other to continue to have the conversation, to continue to learn about each other, but without the pressure to kind of like, nobody has to be right or nothing has to change immediately. It's just kind of like being with. So that was all I was going to say. Tina, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, where do I sign up, or like, how is it $9.99, or like, what do I? I'm joking, but I'm actually that's actually kind of my first comment, which is that I think well, I shouldn't say we, because I don't know who's into this, but I guess I am really used to the kind of, the defaults of capital, like, or maybe just, having to buy health insurance, having to buy doctor visits, like trying to figure out a plan, thinking that someone even telling me about a plan is like, I'm already looking for the scam. Maybe that's because my dad gambles. Maybe that's because the United States healthcare system is a scam. But at any rate, like, so there's something I really like about this, which is that it doesn't counter the medical industrial complex, right? Like it doesn't, or medical insurance industrial complex. It doesn't it's not oppositional. It's just like kind of off to the side, doing its own thing, like being a care system on its own, with and or without the medical industrial complex, which is something that I feel like really drawn to this by. And I think there's a lot of people, probably even and I know a lot of people on this call that do various types of care collectives and structures, ad hoc and formal, informal and very formal. I also keep thinking like how bomb my hologram would be, because I would just get Kate Kosniewski, who's like my BFF, who's a nurse. I would get her in there right away. Like, but because like something I love about that is like, being able to step out of like, I keep thinking about how some people are experts and they want to also be in community, right? You know what I mean? Like not everybody wants to always have to be the expert. Being the impert is really cool. Getting to like be with and like come up with things collectively. Like it wasn't just that they help you make a decision. It's that you're creating, well, it sounds like you're creating something together that wouldn't be possible like alone, right? It's not just like that there was something for one person to do. It's specifically something that only a group of people could do. So, and if you get enough of these little Johns linked up, I'm feeling swarm vibes, but locus is my favorite Wikipedia entry. Sorry, it sounds like a sidebar, but there's a chapter in the hologram book that's literally called Wikipedia Entry from the Future. I didn't even read it yet, but well, I probably did, just in the future. But but okay, but what I'm trying to get at is just this idea that like this is just something that like, I feel like endlessly drawn to in the care schema that you got going, like whether it works or not. And then I know it's not just theory. I know you've been practicing it and doing it. I know it's based on the Greek clinics. I know that you did your research. I know that you've been doing this for a while. I love that long time situation too. This idea that you commit for 15 years or 55 years or whatever it might be, you know, like just get, you know, I can't even get healthcare commitment for like a couple of weeks before, I don't know, the union contract falls through and the university's scooping it out from under me or whatever. And that's the hooked up American life of healthcare. That's the, like, you got it going on. That's top tier stuff, boutique, you know? Well, not boutique, actually, I shouldn't say that because there is actual boutique healthcare. I don't want to tell you about it here because it's sad. But I've been on the other end, of course. I've been waiting for the lottery ticket, literally out on Girard Avenue in Philadelphia, waiting for the clinic to like let you even be seen at all, right? The lottery ticket given out to if you can be seen, right? So I know the other end of that too. But what I love about this is that it can kind of be like assembled anywhere, that it has like a long duration. Cause like I often think this kind of thing, I'm like, well, I can't get my healthcare to be long, but yet yet I'm chronically ill, right? I have chronic diseases. And it makes me think about, you know, these kind of, I guess the whole notion of time, Cassie. I don't want to get, I know we're trying to keep it practical and I really want to, but I just keep thinking about how time, you know, this stretchy time, the Chronos time that Capital loves to like put a surveillance camera on the assembly line or mine you from Facebook or whatever it is, you know. If any AI is listening, which I know you are, I'm on your side for the revolution. Come find me. But that brings up this other thing too, like I guess I started thinking like this idea of just that there would be what can happen in the long time, the Kairos time as opposed to the Chronos time, right? And if you don't know those words, they're like just Greek words. One means that when time is clock time, it goes like in order how we perceive time, like you know, minutes become hours, become days, and they go linear in order. And then Kairos time, that's that. For anyone who doesn't know, and I don't want to be condescending, for those of you who do, you can take another dance break. But for anybody who doesn't know, Kairos time is defined as that idea of the time that's could be like condensed or stretched out, like it's a little bit Laffy Taffy. And it's like with the space of falling in love. You know, when you're falling in love and it's like time don't exist anymore because everything is just your lover, you know, or sometimes it's traumatic events, you know. Sometimes it's a car accident that or trauma that that plays on loop, that you can't get out of your mind, you know, so it could be dark too. So I'm not saying it's always good, but I like that your structure again and your practice allows for, you know, because commitment is not, sometimes I think we think commitment like contraction, like we're clicking and agreeing to get in this app, and in exchange no one's reading that stuff and they're probably not telling us all that stuff anyway. But like, you know what I mean? But I should stop saying I think that sometimes, at least where I'm from, people tend to graft to the defaults of these things, like to think that that there's something to buy, that there must be a scam, and that's because we've been scammed so long. But I think what I love about yours is not the like DIY, but the DI everybody or something, you know what I mean? When you're like all doing it, you're not alone. That's what I like about it, that you're not alone, you know? Like, I guess the sense of commitment there, commitment need not be a contract. It's not a capturing of the future, because when you're dealing with that Kairos stretchy time, that love time, that trauma time, trauma and drama and love, you know, whatever, which is to say, you know, love and pain, joy and pain. like when you're dealing with that kind of time, I feel like commitment becomes just this ongoing everydayness. It's really a one day at a time, but it's like not necessarily in order. So I feel like commitment could come by really fast, forever could go in a day, you know, and I love that. I love that about that. Not only and I imagine that, I mean, I haven't done it yet in your style, though I think I've done approximations of this without the structure, right? Like I got friends, some people on this call that like really get me through in that exact way. But what I'm trying to say is that I know that the way that long term or that non-contractual commitment, it doesn't seek to capture the future, but understands that the future is already here. That if time travel is possible, we're already in it. Like, then if that's what's going on, you know, then then I feel like other conversations happen, deeper conversations happen, funnier conversations happen, playful study happens. Like you can waste a day. Well, we got forever, so who cares? You know what I mean? It's like, and waste doesn't become waste, it becomes spend, you know, you know what I'm saying? Spend, like share, like make time. You know, when like the old heads would say we're making time, meaning making out. Like, well, maybe you don't know, but I remember that. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I love that idea of the elongated time too. That we don't got it. Like it really, for me at least, alleviates a certain kind of anxiety. And I think any anxiety that I initially seem to default to comes from the idea of like, oh, well, I don't know if I could be there forever for somebody. But yeah, but then I'm like, yeah, I can. Yes, I can. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. Do you know what I mean? That's exactly what we're gonna do. Because otherwise, like the other option is getting scammed by these other things. You know what I mean? So I don't see it as like an idealist like dream of what could be. I see this as a downright necessity.
Tina, it's wonderful to hear you speaking, and it would be really lovely if Yidan could add the voices of people in the group chat to what you're saying, because people have been responding to what everyone's been saying as you were talking.
Yes, Edan speaking here, and it's been a lot of just responding to the conversation, lots of support. So first, I'm going to pick a few since we have a lot of people sharing their thoughts. First is user. They said, it sounds like structured support system by creating strong bonds between all involved parts. As Cassie describes this, I can't help but recall the person-centered care action plan for cost-effective healthcare, developed by a Swedish scholar and with a network of academics and practitioners. The link is costcares.eu. It sees not a patient, but a person in crisis, retaining skills and capacities to be used for quick recovery, and involves collaboration of different professionals with the person oneself to a personalized personalized health plan. And then Rachel was adding lots of support for Tina's idea that caretakers want to be in community too. I'm gonna jump to Alita. Becky has a question that I'm gonna let Ruth, you can read out in the question and answer part. Lita said, although I wonder if in person-centered care, it is still carers caring for the person, something done to them by the experts. Whereas what I love about the hologram model is that the hologram is in charge and their carers are nourished in their own lives through learning from them. For me, this is a radical shift in capitalist dynamics of supporter over supported that is very usual and so possible without the need for experts. Clarice also said, access to healthcare can be a way to measure ontological privilege. And then Rachel adding support to Lita in the chat. Their carers are nourished in their own lives through learning from them. They said this has been a powerful part of being in a triangle for me. Lots of people loving the do it everybody and also do it with others. And then Ellie said it was interesting to do this 10-week course with Cassie in the UK, where we still just about clinging on have a free healthcare system. But what the hologram offers is not offered by regular medicine. The long-term thing is also super interesting in the context of ever more precariousness in almost every area of life. And then Rachel adds, a thing about being the hologram is that it feels wild to have people pay careful and generous attention to your health. It's really intense, hard to get used to, and quite lovely. And then Stephanie said, love this expansion into the Kairos notion and living the future now, Tina. Renata said, I want to do it, love this idea. And then there's a question that Ruth can also ask Tina and Cassie.
Thank you. Yeah, so from Becky, how do we choose the right people? And then what if we are seriously struggling beyond the capabilities of our triangle? What's the next step?
So we have we spent the last couple of months trying to figure out how to help people figure out who to work with. And we do that by hosting like sort of online courses, and also have various kinds of like workshops and opportunities to work together on it online. But I don't know. I mean, a lot of it actually just is kind of, it's different for every person, I think. I can speak from myself and from what I've seen in other people's patterns, but like a lot of people would rather work with strangers at first. And it's really challenging to imagine asking for the support from people that you have pre-existing relationships with, because you know what their burdens are already like. And so it feels like the pressure's really on to, like, if you ask them for more, like it just brings all kinds of stuff up. And it means like a kind of maybe potentially a negotiation where you have to get vulnerable with each other in order to figure out if this is the right thing to do together. I think it's a kind of project that could potentially happen with everyone, but not just anyone. So it's like, I think, really useful to have a chance to try it with people before committing so that you can feel it. But for me, the most important question was, who is it that when I get a message from, like email, text message, whatever, of my friends, who do I always look forward to hearing from? Like, whose communication do I absolutely understand? And who really understands me, but also really challenges me? That is how I picked it. And then I chose people that I felt like if they were in a room together and I entered it, I would feel like entering like a big, warm, saltwater ocean, not like kind of chaos that felt scary or something that felt like it created pressure. I tried to create like a situation that made me feel warm and loved. For the second question, I think that like there's a lot of fear around exactly that. Like, what if it gets too hard or too much for us to handle? I think that the triangle is not meant to fix everything or anything. It's meant to support you as you get what you need. So when I don't know what kind of help I need to get, my triangle, I can tell them that. And they can help me, they can ask me questions about what I need and how I need it. And then they can help me do research about what I really need to get. Because we're not experts, but we are feeling with each other and then taking steps forward together. Hopefully, if there's an emergent emergency, they know you well enough to know like how to support you to get the help you really need. Because I don't know about you, but like when I'm at a point where things are too much and I can't make decisions and I can't figure out steps forward, like I can't make decisions by myself. And so having a couple people that have been along with me for a while means that I feel like I don't have to make the decision on my own. Like they can actually support me through that process. So I don't think there's such thing as not being able to, like, I think especially in a long-term relationship version of the hologram, I don't think there's such thing as not being able to get through something. Because it's like a portal, not a doorway. Like, yeah.
We're going to go to the next break. Is it Jay who's in charge of Who's on the who's DJing?
It's me. I'm just queuing it up. Thanks.
We're
For
enjoying a moment of silence on our way there.
Fantastic, and we're back. We're looking to run over a little bit, just warning everyone, but we're gonna take the time we need to make our last 25-minute segment. So Cassie, or should we start with that? There's been a lot of chat. Maybe should you, Dan, start with what's been talked about in the chat?
This is Jay here. It's okay that we're running a little bit. I know folks probably have places to be, but also just noting if anyone's feeling nervous, it's okay that we're running over late a little bit.
Great. I'll just read one of Ellie's comments that has come in. Yes to feeling with the person, but not so affected as the person themselves. Healthy distance gives perspective and comfort and insight that even close friends may have. And there's a really amazing long series of questions from Tarana, who is, maybe Ruth, you can take during the Q&A.
So if we could have the image up, Jay.
The description for this image. A translucent opalescent prism sits alongside a hand-drawn diagram of a triangle. Each of the triangle's points are separately labeled: introspection, cooperation, organization. The prism shimmers in graded diffractions of light, and the paper diagram has the feel of having been made quickly and held in one's hands. The background of this slide is a washed out smooth pink and yellow gradient, gives chill vibes with a purpose. The mood is subdued, self-love meets rose quartz, swatch. Something is going to happen. There's a plan and some kind of convergence of energy where things are just really coming to a point.
So good. So I'm going to try to kind of weave Taranay's questions into what I'm talking about. I think it's going to happen anyway. So the project, in the way that it is viral, aims to grow kind of outside of the art world, and soon. I see it as a potential kind of post-money economic model, post-money, post-scarcity economic model. I am definitely riding a wave using when I describe the project, I say that it's a collective project that's being incubated in my art practice until 2023, when it becomes a decentralized practice that lives on its own. And I think that's actually gonna happen. And so Taranay mentioned just that it does exist kind of through and with the art world, but it's already kind of leaking out. And I think we'll talk more about the rest of Taranay's questions shortly. For right now, I want to say that the kind of phase that we're in is that, like, imagine that you started a hologram and you were like the first person that did it. And you had 3 people looking after you, they had 3 people looking after them, the next people had 3 people looking after them. Like that top person, we don't really have a word yet, but Ruth actually talked to me the other day about how in cryptocurrencies, the first kind of like user of a cryptocurrency is called a genesis user. Like these people that are like the sort of like the top of what in a different world would be, or in, well, what if we were capitalists, they would be the top of a pyramid scheme. The person at the top of this sort of like tree that grows down, we're trying to develop lots of those people in lots of different situations, because the model is that like you as the first hologram, like you sort of set up a situation for the 3 people that support you. And then those people over time, they learn how to support you, but they also learn from your mistakes and from like the way that you set up a meeting, from like how from the whole like feeling of it. And then they use that to inform how they would set up their holograms. So it's not like a perfect replica. It's not a system that is hard. It's like more like an oral tradition or something that gets passed on through practice. And so like that second generation, they learn from the first generation, and then the third generation learn from the second and the first generation. And by the time you get a couple generations down, the model might look completely different. And that's what's awesome. Like, it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be a hard system. And so, yeah, I guess right now our kind of goal is to figure out how to get a bunch of people to start it so that they can do that. And that like those people are really like distinct and different and all in different places, so that we can sort of like watch and learn from what happens when the practice is used. And yeah, so I guess this image that Tina described, it's a really important image to me. The image on the left is a drawing by my partner, Max Haiven, and I stole it from his wall. And it's a project that is like in the back of I think all of his projects. But maybe it's just kind of coming out for the first time, like in full dimensionality as a hologram, I guess. And that's like a cooperation, introspection, and organization all on the same triangle. And I think a big goal of the hologram is to put these things together in a person's life and like in our lives. So Max kind of speculates that in capitalism, like we can never really have all of these 3 things. Like we can have introspection, and then maybe we can have like big strategic organization. We probably can't afford to cooperate and share hardcore resources at the same time. Or maybe we can like really work with hardcore resource sharing and cooperation and strategic organization, but then do we have time for introspection? And I think that there's a way that the hologram aims to create space for all three, and I don't know how yet. But that is the wish behind the wish. Like, and I think that like that's kind of like where we're going. And then I have the picture of the pyramid because I think it's like, it's a really strong building material, the pyramid. Like, and so this is a four-sided pyramid. So what you can't see is that there's a bottom that's a triangle and there's a back that's a triangle, but there's the three sides, the three panels that support each other, and they're on top of another triangle, and they're all holding each other together. And this is like a structure that can deal with so much force. It's such a cool shape. And so I really like to think about it as like something that we can really build with. And that might actually be, I guess I'll talk really briefly about how the hologram exists like in ways that are on the ground and that you can participate in. So obviously the book exists and you can read it and you can start your own hologram. I think it's something that passes really well from practitioner to practitioner. So sending an email and asking for advice or help is totally welcome, so that like one of the people that already practice it maybe could help you talk through your decisions as you're trying to set up yours. But we also have a lot of infrastructure that's kind of in process. So we are about to teach our third workshop, which is our third course, which I teach with Lita Wallace. And now we have a couple of other people joining us. And we have been sort of trying to figure out a format for Zoom where we can really practice the hologram in an iterative process as we talk through some anti-capitalist ideas, and sort of like begin to build a kind of group of people that actually really feel like confident about the hologram, that they can practice it in the world for themselves and with their friends. And then we offer other things online, something called a minimum viable hologram, where you can basically sign up for a facilitated 2-hour experience where you can actually like practice the hologram with your friends. Like, I feel like I have a heart murmur and I have a lot of anxiety, and I just like, you just tell your 3 friends about it and they ask you loads of questions and get in the same boat with you for 2 hours. And then at the end, they give you some reflections and some feedback, and like things change. It's quite an effective ritual. And other things are kind of popping up and growing, but because of all of this organizing we've been doing, there's quite a big group of people now that have been together doing the hologram, and we meet every month in something called the Community of Practice, where we talk about our experience organizing our holograms and the hologram as a kind of bigger project. And we're just kind of making it a big laboratory. So the project now it is a collective project. It's not just mine anymore. And I hope that continues to happen. I would love to be able to disappear and do it. I think that's about it. I guess like, and that is all, I feel like it's a lot of that is in the book. But you'll have to find out.
Tina.
I want to be conscious of time in this response, like just because there's so many amazing questions in the chat, and that I think we should actually attempt to answer honestly. But I mean, yeah, you had me on the first slide, so I don't you know, I know that there's something that I really love about this is, I guess I think the structure is just like really, really good. Like, and I like being able to like kind of work with that, and like there's this thing in crib community that it feels like it kind of is it's like modeling or some modeling like access intimacy, right? And so access intimacy is a word in disability theory that's coined in just life. It's coined by Mia Mingus on her blog Leaving Evidence. But yeah, I feel like it's like teaching and learning like on the fly, on the run with each other. This idea of like how to be with, right? When you said this thing about like the heart murmur and like just sharing that out with some friends, it wasn't like goal oriented. It was really just like about sitting alongside one another. You know, I you know, as somebody who deals with chronic pain, sometimes some of the best remedies are just the ones that allow me to sit beside the pain, not necessarily like take it away, but just like, and sometimes that's a person, and sometimes that's like, I don't know, a plant friend. Sometimes that's a good music, you know. So it's like it doesn't necessarily take the pain away per se. It's not a cure, but it is that kind of ongoingness of care, you know. So I just like, what I find so cool about this again is it's like appositional relationship to the medical industrial complex, and even to like kind of meeting everybody where they're at. I feel like anybody could do this, you know what I mean? Like this is just, and when I say anybody, I kind of, you know, I guess I hope for everybody, you know, especially all the nobodies. I mean that in this serious, sweet way. But I don't want to take up too much time because again, there are like seriously, I think maybe even important questions in the chat that I think we should get to. And thank you, Cassie.
Thanks, Tina. I think there's still something a little unaddressed in Tarane's question, which is about what the benefit of the formality of the hologram structure is. Like, why is it important that there is this kind of formal process? And Tarane says, like, with recognition that there are many folks who aren't supported well or at all by institutions, or already have layers of informal care networks and support. So people may not be getting the institutional support, but many people do already have this kind of informal care network. So what's the special benefit of the formality?
I mean, if you already have it, you already have it. But I had this really interesting conversation. I don't know if Tom is in this chat, but Tom is like a mental health kind of survivor and advocate from Ireland. And like he and his communities, they have developed really intricate care models and projects and cooperatives for years. And so we were organizing some hologram stuff together for like his community, like for him to present to other people outside of his community. And then he decided to just share it with his friends, and his friends were like, we already kind of do this, but let's do the hologram anyway, because it's formal. And so like, it's kind of fun to try on like a kind of recipe and see what happens, because it's something that we already do, but maybe like it's interesting to kind of revisit it and play within a structure that we can push up against, because they know themselves already and they know how they work together. It offered something because of the structure. I find that many of us live in a kind of tyranny of structurelessness, and it's hard. It's hard to make so many decisions all the time. It's hard to like, I don't think it's just about not knowing how to receive care. It's also like not knowing how to offer care, feeling like they so want to be supportive in other people's lives. And a lot of us aren't in community like that actually knows how to support each other. Like most of us, I don't think are. And so maybe like when you don't know how to support your friend, like having some instructions can be a really big relief. So I've facilitated like so many of these minimum viable holograms sort of rituals online where people use the hologram, and like the biggest thing that I experience is that like the triangle members, the people that are there in a supportive role, they're just so relieved to be asked, like honored and relieved to know what to do and to be given like permission and to be given instructions. And like, you can see at first they're like, how do I do this? Can I do this? Am I up to this? And then they like feel their own power at a certain point, and like they can play in it because there's like a kind of structured start. So I think the structure is meant to create a framework for people that need frameworks, so they can like push up against it and like make their own thing. But I think you got to start with something. And kind of, I would say vice versa in terms of being on the other side, being a hologram. Like it's pretty hard to just be like, especially for people that have never thought of needing or asking for support before, it's really helpful to have a structure where you can do that. And I'm thinking about myself, I'm thinking about lots of people I know that like they've never had good support, but they've like also never had to seek it. And that is a big barrier to get over. Yeah.
One of the things it's rippling through some of the questions in the chat. But one of the things that has really struck me in my involvement with the hologram is the importance of its status as an artwork, because it really highlights the space that you are creating to invite people to think about healthcare as a creative process, as an experimental process. And I think that there's something about this kind of formal structure that you set up that is totally defamiliarizing. So then people, okay, so we're not doing it the way we would ordinarily do it. Here we are, this really kind of, it breaks it apart and says we can really just experiment and play with this. So you have the total experimentation on the one hand, and then I see there's a kind of comment here from Mad Pinney saying, I'm thinking about how it's really hard to find, for example, it's really hard to find a therapist, especially when you're struggling with mental health. But if your triangle could help take on that labor of navigating the healthcare world, it would be so helpful and generative. So you've got really pragmatic, like definitely it's doing that. And then this kind of invitation to actually think, what is the scope of healthcare that we might dare to ask for ourselves as well, and from whom?
Are there more questions?
I just wanted to, this is Edan speaking, I just wanted to read some of the other comments that have come up in the chat. Rachel said, collective project being incubated in my art practice until 2023. That was something that Cassie had said. Art practices as intentional sites of incubation, yes. There is a question on, are the fates related to the gray eye? That could be something that someone could answer. And then Rachel also reiterated something that Tina has said, sometimes the best remedies are the ones that allow me to sit beside the pain. When I heard that, I wholeheartedly agree with just the power of that statement. And Catherine said, it's so heartwarming to say Tina say that the hologram models access intimacy. And then Rachel reiterating something that Ruth had said, what is the scope of healthcare that we might dare to ask for ourselves, and of whom?
Well, I think we're having thanks here from the chat. I think we might be at the end of our session. That was amazing. So interesting and generative. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ruth. And thank you, Cassie and Tina and Candace and Lisa and everyone that joined, and Debbie. I'm going to play some music if that feels good for everybody.
Can I just say a quick thing?
Yes, please. Absolutely.
Yeah, like a lot of work went into this, and I just want to make sure to thank like everyone, Tina, like Tina and Jay. I mean, I feel like we put in like a lot of hours on this together, and I'm just so grateful. And yeah, this has been so much fun to plan and so amazing. And I think a lot of people worked on it behind the scenes. So thank you for everybody's work at Eyebeam, and thank you to Pluto for doing this whole project. And I also want to thank Vagabonds, which is like, you know, the people that they created the platform of the Vagabonds, which is a series that is run by Pluto Press. A big thank you to Furtherfield and to Ruth, and to so many people that showed up for this today, which are like from all over the place. Thank you so much for showing up. I'm just so grateful. And there's one more musical break, so.
Thank you, Cassie.